Here we go. NLP today. And today is a talk about a class I'm doing, NLP 2025. I'm calling it Street Smart NLP, right? And it's a little bit different, right? I mean, basic NLP, people who've been in my trainings know that I use the martial arts analogy. The basic stuff in like martial arts is the basic stuff, right? Front kicks, back kicks, punch it, right? And if you ever go to a black belt, or when I used to go to this camp, George Dillman's camp in Pennsylvania, you'd spend a couple hours each day on a 3-day weekend just going over the basics. Now, most of these guys ran dojos or were professional fighters, so they knew how to do that. But he would stress that it's doing the basics, right? And another sports analogy I use a lot is the better the athlete, the more time after the season they go back and practice the basics, right? As Dr. John knows, people like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan would, as soon as the season's over, they rest real quick and then they start back on the court, just doing the basics, Of course, Tom Brady and some of the elite football players would go and work for 2 weeks on throwing a football, right? You're like, they just set a record, like when Peyton Manning. Then he goes, yeah, but it's the things you forget, right? Which is going to tie into the talk. So yeah, the basics are the basics, but I've always been adding things, tweaking things. People that know, it's like, because when I first got involved in NLP, it was very short training. In fact, they did not have a menu, right? They would just say, take notes. And then they started handing out, boy, this will date myself, mimeograph sheets. Do you remember those? Right? Because it would be like they'd hand it out, right? It was the Wild West. It was great. People, these trainers, I went to one of the trainings where, we had Bandler, Grinder, David Gordon, Dilts, Stephen Connery, Ray Andreas, all these people showed up. And I, especially the second time I went through, I got to help out. And you got to meet the trainers, and you'd hear the person putting it on would say, well, what are you teaching this weekend? And they'd go, don't know yet. Wait till we get started. Right? It's like, that's literal. Especially Bandler was notorious for that, right? No judgment. It's because they were brilliant, but it was like, this is what they're going to do. It's why if you don't know what you're going to teach, you can't have notes. And for my people that go into the weeds, Michelle, yeah, it's like, it's different, because if you're a very detail-oriented person, you want this outline, PowerPoint, all this other stuff. And then you get around people that are just kind of intuitive with it, doing that. Now that leads to one of the things I'm changing in the NLP basic Street Smart NLP is one of the big cop-outs. And I heard Bandler talk about this recently, but I've said it, is you go and you watch like a Bandler or, Bandler, Grinder, David Gordon, Dilts, the late Virginia Satir, going even back to Milton Erickson. People be watching it and they would say, well, they're just so intuitive. Which is great, but that's a cop-out to say I can't learn it, right? Was Michael Jordan an intuitive basketball player, or did he spend hours a day practicing the skills that got him going? It's like and most people, when they come to any kind of training, NLP training, hypnosis training, that they want to skip from novice to expert, right? At the conference this year, one of the conferences, I think it was the Guild, somebody said, I want to do what you do. I said, well, how long you been doing it? Well, I took my first training this year. I said, well, check back. If I'm still alive, check back in about 25 years, right? It's like, but people want to do that. And what we're on now with social media, the internet, things are faster than ever before, right? But you still got to do that. So that it's that thinking something's intuitive, and then people assume they can't learn it, right? And it's just usually because the people doing it that way, if they're teaching it, they haven't done the methodology to teach it to other people, right? I use the military analogy, another analogy I like to use. You always hear military trainers when they're putting together a military training. It doesn't matter if 1 or 2 people can do it. If we can't teach other people to do, it's a useless skill, right? If I can't get a group of 100, test them, and then make 10 of them elite snipers, if you're just looking for the magical one that can become a sniper, right? It's a skill set you have to learn, right? And so, but that's you have to be able to break it down into the methodology. The bad part, and I can defend, the elite trainers like that, Bandler, Grinder. I always think of Robert Dilts, even though he does break down stuff very well. And Erickson is, you can be good at doing it, doesn't mean you can break it down and teach it, right? Right. I mean, I heard, again, to use since Dr. John's here, to use another sports analogy from basketball, not my cup of tea, to be honest with you. I like it, but Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, when he was alive, said the same thing. They're probably not going to coach, right? Because it's a different skill set, right? Some of the best practitioners may not be able to teach it. And some of the best trainers in hypnosis, NLP, sales, all that, may not be good at the skill themselves, but they know how to teach it, right? And every once in a while you get someone, I got to do my NLP stuff. Every once in a while you get that rare individual that can do both. But anyway, it's like breaking it down, having a different mindset, right? And so, taking this information, excuse me, and then giving the methodology so you could practice it, so then it can become intuitive to you, right? And one of the things that changed a few years ago when I was looking at redoing the NLP stuff, and this has been an ongoing process, it's probably not going to stop, is I've been lucky, especially when COVID hit and everything went online. I had to do all my continuing education units for my psychologist license, and I was focusing on neurology, neurobiology, and the neurochemicals, right? Take all these classes, right? Because I'm like, there's got to be something here. And then with the advent of the mind mapping technology, not to be confused with the writing things down, when they put you in an MRI, they know we can track how your brain's working, right? And good example of that would be is the difference between somebody who just drinks too much and somebody that's addicted to it. And the difference is very simple. And bear with me, if this is your brain, so this is your brain, right? And this would be your brain stem. I'll make this simple one, right? One day I'll get somebody that's good at making videos to make this for me, right? But so this front part would be your prefrontal cortex, part of you can think, make decisions, right? Then underneath it would be your amygdala, your reticular activating system, and the part of you that's trying to keep you alive. Now what happens, and it's been in the last couple of decades, they put somebody in an MRI that had at least a drinking problem, right? We don't know if they're an alcoholic, but we know they're drinking too much. And, which means they're drinking in spite of negative consequence. And then have them think about whatever their favorite drink is, right? Corona, whatever it happens to be. Well, some people, their prefrontal cortex lights up and they're going to think about it, right? They go, no, it's noon, or, hey, I'm getting off work. You want a drink? Yeah, it'd be good. But you know what? My daughter's got a soccer game tonight. So I have to pass, because this part of their brain's engaged. But other people, smaller subset, 10% or less, what happens when you have them in that MRI and they start thinking about their drink or drug of choice, their prefrontal cortex goes offline, goes dark, right? And their amygdala lights up and they go into fight or flight, right? And that's the phenomenon of craving, which the addiction world's talked about forever, right? And once it's activated, you're not thinking you're not thinking about your daughter's soccer game tonight. You're thinking, oh, I'll be able to go and have 1 or 2 and still make the game, right? Till you end up in the back of a squad car on the way home. So it's the difference. And we also know from the NLP and the hypnosis world, when we talk about your reticular activating system, that phenomenon of saying, I want a new car, don't know what kind of car I want, and you decide I'm going to get, I don't know, a BMW 740, which for some reason I've been noticing those, right? But, it's suddenly you'll see that car everywhere, right? Because you gave this to your subconscious, which is running even when you're thinking. You'll go, oh yeah, or oh yeah. So yeah, the day before you wouldn't notice, maybe your neighbor had one, now you notice it, right? It's the same phenomenon. We have a lot of different people here. Whatever kind of person you find attractive is the people you will notice in a group first. It's just the way that it is, right? So we know that. So I started teaching that, and and it kind of spilled out, and that's in a lot of the basic NLP and hypnosis trainings. Or Tony Robbins talk about it. The next couple things I'm going to talk about real quick, which is what besides the basic NLP stuff that we've added with the NLP approach. One is called the HOT model, and of course then the behavior profiling from the FBI and the CIA, because I've been blessed to go through the crisis, hostage negotiation, and audit profiling course from the FBI decades ago. But I picked it up, right? I learned it enough that I think it became intuitive, and I think everybody knows what I know, right? In fact, this morning I had an interesting experience with someone where I assumed, it's called, as we all know, we call it mind reading in basic NLP, that she knew what I meant, but I hadn't told her. How the hell are you going to know what I meant if I haven't said it, right? So just because you know this stuff. But anyway, the HOT model and the behavior profiling, I know it's not in any other basic NLP or even hypnosis. The reason I know that is I haven't taught it enough to get out there where all the internet marketers can steal it and duplicate it. And I'm saying that with love and respect. It's what internet marketers do. So anyway, what is the HOT model? Well, the HOT model really quickly is you have 3 levels of thought. This ties into learning hypnosis, NLP, and all coaching, right? Or psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is where I kind of got this idea. But you have these 3 levels of thought, right? The first level of thought is when you're in the experience. When you're totally in the experience, going back to our addiction model, is this part of your brain's activated, right? It's trying to keep you alive. It's trying to find food, shelter, safety, mating. This part's always running, right? So when you're in an experience, when you're truly in the experience, you can't think about anything else, right? If you're an artist, a singer, a dancer, athlete, sometimes Erickson talked about when he was doing trance work, he didn't know what he was doing. He was in the experience. Doesn't mean this part of your brain's not active, but it kind of goes like this, right? And so I'm like, this is fascinating. So sometimes clients show up, do we want to put them in the experience? For all the people who study hypnosis, that's what a progressive relaxation does, right? It puts you in the experience, right? Take a deep breath, close your eyes, focus on your toes. It's putting you into your body. It's taking you this, walking down the beach. All of these long inductions in the hypnosis world is putting you in the experience, right? But the next level of thought, and there's sometimes you want to put people in the experience, but many times you have to pull people out of the experience, right? And again, I always default to a lot of the addiction stuff. If this is active and you're in a craving, the whole thing of treatment, rehab, everything is bringing your prefrontal cortex back online so you can think it through, right? So sometimes you want to pull people out of the experience, so then you can take them where maybe put them into a different experience. But if they're in a strong experience, you can't, is when I teach, I always taught this in the basic, a technique called behavior transfer, where, like, let's say somebody has road rage. You can't take them from road rage to calm, right? It's too big a leap. It's too big a leap, right? So, and I used to do this a lot when I had my office, especially in the one in the beautiful Chicago area, because people were always stressed out coming into the office. They'd be late. Of course, I worked it into my schedule, but it's like they're freaking out. Well, it's kind of hard for me to say, have a seat, sit down, take a deep breath, close your eyes. Now we're going to do trance work. They're like freaking out, right? And so what you do is you take them they're in the experience, seeing, hearing, feeling, they're focused, tunnel vision. And if you pull them out of the experience and put them in a neutral state, right? You're pulling them out of the experience, because the second level of thought is thinking about the experience. You're not experiencing it, you're thinking about it. An example we use for personal change is you open the refrigerator. Somebody has an eating thing. You open the refrigerator late at night. going, what do I want? You're not hungry. If you're really hungry, you open the fridge, you're going to grab something that doesn't matter what. You're hungry, you're going to eat. But this lets you know you're not really physically hungry. It's something else going on. And so, if that's happening with a client, you pull them out of the experience and go, am I really hungry or am I bored? Am I hungry or am I, mad at my significant other? So I'm trying to like stuff all this stuff, right? But it pulls you out so then you can settle back down, right? And the old, you pull them out of the experience and go a deep breath and a drink of water. It washes away all thoughts and desires to whatever it is, right? And it's fascinating, right? So you have the first level of thought, you're in the experience. Sometimes you want to put them in the experience, right? Second level of thought is you're thinking about the experience. That's where a lot of our NLP techniques, hypnosis techniques, is you pull them out of the experience. Now you say, like, picture a movie screen, see yourself going through this stuff on a movie screen, the new behavior generator. Now step into the movie. Then you're going back into association. Right. So it gives you a cool way to look at it. But what's the next level of thought is the third level is you're thinking about thinking. You're totally disassociated. First, you're associated. Second, you're slightly disassociated. Third is you're double disassociated. Classic NLP technique that Bandler came up with is the fast phobia technique. Right? You're sitting in a movie theater, so you're disassociated looking on the screen. But wait, there's more. Now we're going to go back to the projection booth. See yourself looking at the movie screen. It's double disassociation, right? Which removes this, right? And so none of these levels of thought are good or bad or indifferent. It's just, is what you're doing working for you? I always think of, if you've ever had the pleasure of having a client that's a medical doctor, an attorney, or a therapist, sometimes they're stuck in the third level of thought. They're thinking about it, right? Did a in-service years ago, one of the last ones I did for a psych organization. And first thing I noticed, ladies and gentlemen, and can I get an amen, brothers and sisters, Lord, lighten up. It's a long day. Is they never wanted to do I said, let's do this exercise. Wait a second. What's your empirical evidence? Or what? I mean, they were stuck in thinking about it. They didn't want to step into the experience. Part of that's their training, medical doctors, psychologists, licensed mental health practitioners, lawyers. You ever had the pleasure of dealing with a lawyer? It's fun in a different way. It doesn't matter what you know. It only matters what you can prove. Every good lawyer I know goes, I don't know. I don't want to know if you're guilty or innocent. That's irrelevant. Right. And so it's like, it's a different level of thought. Right. And so, but the good lawyers intuitively learn how to, okay, they're up here, but they want to take the jury out of thinking about this. Don't look at the evidence. I watched I don't know if it was the Lincoln lawyer, but I'm like, that's exactly the way it should be done. This guy's going, you can look at the evidence, but now when you step into how it makes you feel, right? He didn't want you looking at the evidence because the evidence was the evidence, right? But if he could take you into the feelings, and then he spun it around. So that's the hot model. So I've really added that. So then when you look at like all the NLP techniques, do you want to put them in the experience, pull them out of the experience, maybe pull them out of the experience to re-experience, go back into the experience? That's what the new behavior generator is again, right? Or even the double disassociation where you're totally stuck and you have to go back and really think about the thinking. Where does this thinking come from? Why do I think I have to eat when I'm bored? Why do I think I have to eat when I'm in a conflict with a boss or significant other, right? That gives you a different level. So that is the hot model, right? And I love that. And I've only added it in the last couple of years. And now we're going to tie it in with behavior profiling, something I learned at a different place. And it's very powerful, right? And it's usually credited with the FBI, the CIA, God knows where it comes from. But it's been synthesized down. Now in NLP, I always say this, right? NLP, and I used to say hypnosis, but not so much hypnosis unless it teaches you the basic NLP, it's like it's giving you an X-ray of the person, right? So you can see inside a little bit, right? Most psychotherapy is like a written report, which I do for this company I work now. It's a representation of what, you know, Lily's feeling, but it doesn't get, if you turn the page, there's nothing there. You know, it's all in there. So it's like, right? But NLP, when you learn the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, move toward, move away from, you know, the rep systems, it's more of an insight. And maybe not what they're thinking, but how they're thinking, which that alone is like magic, right? And that, when I've been teaching that for a long time, that's what got me invited to the FBI Academy. But they add different stuff, right? And I went through this training, and I wasn't thinking like a trainer when I was in the training. I was thinking like a student. And I'm like, and it was all practice, practice, practice. It wasn't a lot of thinking about it. Because I remember the head agent that was doing the training would constantly yell at people, right? About just do the exercise, right? Just do the exercise, right? And so we would constantly be doing these exercises. And they were trying to make it more intuitive. Because the time not to have to refer to your manual is when there's a hostage situation, right? And in one of the scenarios, you know, you have a little, somewhere I have it back here, hostage negotiation book, right? It's probably been rewritten 5 times since then. But they'd be doing a scenario, right? So there'd be like a bank robbery or a hostage situation in school. And they have, at Quantico, if they haven't changed it yet, they have a little city in the back that has like a bank, a grocery store, school, gas station, an airplane. So when they're doing a scenario like of a bank hostage, you're in front of a real bank, right? When you're in the command vehicle, right? It's really, excuse my language, fucking awesome, right? So, well, one of the scenarios they would run through, especially the people they thought would be good at it, is, okay, you're on site. There's this going on. They give you the overview, right? The tactical commander is the person in charge, not the negotiator. Here's the scenario, right? Now, do your job. But they took away your manual. You forgot your manual, right? Because you got called to the site at the last minute, you know, and now you're on site. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? It's like, have they learned it enough that they could like take the framework and do it, right? And they would show all these videos of the 2 things we watched the most was what was it, Killeen, Texas, where they had the big hostage situation, and Branch Davidians, you know, and how, you know, that it was fascinating to watch how they did what this is, right? But behavior profiling. So we have the basic NLP. You have your visual, auditory, kinesthetic. That was like breakthrough when it first got being taught. Dr. John was around then. It was like therapists didn't know that visual, auditory. When I first started teaching in the hypnosis world, it wasn't in like any of the hypnosis training, right? Now it's kind of been incorporated in, which is a good thing. So if you know someone's visual, you know, you're going to use visual words. And you have these, what we would call rep systems, what I call markers, if you will, like someone that's very visual, right? How they look is super important. They're going to be put together well. They're going to present well. You know, of course, in the day and age of what we're doing now, Zoom, you might have on a nice shirt, tie, sport jacket. Don't stand up because you might be in your underwear, right? But you're going to present well, right? So that's a visual person, and they'll respond best to visual words, right? Then we have auditory people. You know, they want to talk about it, that, you know, discuss it, and they have more of a rhythmic voice. So these are markers that you can begin to tag, right? And then the last is kinesthetic people that are really, I don't want to just say into their body, but they would rather just like jump in there and do it, roll their sleeves up, get their hands dirty. They'll say stuff like that, right? So if I'm, you know, if we know which one you are, and there's no such thing as an auditory, visual, or kinesthetic, you use them all. It's just which one do you use the most, right? That's like an X-ray. That is like a massive X-ray, right? And that'll work far better than most of the stuff. Then we could add things like, meta programs and all that. Well, if you just have that, that's great. Now, if we add behavioral profiling, and it's none of that Maslow stuff, which is theoretically good, practically useless, in my opinion, because Maslow's highest level is self-actualization, right? Which is it sounds good on paper, but I wonder how many people are going for self-actualization. All they're looking forward to is Thursday night football and getting a couple 6-packs and sitting there and watching a game. That's as actualized as they ever want to become, right? But I mean, once you get your safety met. But anyway, this kind of profiling is that basically there's 4 to 6, depending on how you break it down, So if someone's like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, you have level 1. Now, if you look at them, it kind of goes with that is, do they want to appear strong? Right? Do they want to appear strong? If they want to appear strong, we know that if you flatter their strength, they're going to eat it up. But their biggest fear is to be seen as weak. Right? So, for guys, they might wear skin tight shirts, I always say, go to Target or Walmart, and you'll see somebody in the skin tight Captain America shirt, right? They got the big beer gut and everything's flopping. It's like, but in their mind, no, I'm strong, right? Same kind of people that drive and I used to have one, the big pickup truck that's all jacked up, right? That when you really look at it, Bruce knows, we see him here in Florida, John sees him in California, where that truck has not been off-road, right? But it's like, yes, it's a manly truck, it's a strong truck, and women do it too, right? Harley people. So it's that appearance of strength, right? So if you if they're visual and you say, oh, you look so strong, you're doing this, right? You can then you get in rapport. And if you're trying to get them to do something, if you bring up their fears, people that don't do this are seen as weak. Right? And so that strength kind of goes with a little bit is the people that want to be intelligent, right? They have to be seen as being intelligent. And again, thing about strength or intelligent doesn't mean that you're strong or intelligent. You want to appear strong or you want to appear as intelligent, right? I always say, because I heard another guy say this, it's like, they'll have to tell you where they went to school if they went to Harvard, Yale, or Stanford, right? Within the first 3 minutes, even if it doesn't matter, right? It's like, I did this at the Guild this year, and some guy came up, he goes, you're right, because he goes, I just can't wait to tell people I graduated from Harvard. I'm like, you're still at this conference with the rest of us. I mean, I don't see you on Wall Street running a hedge fund. And he goes, you're an asshole. Anyway, but so they want to appear strong. They want to appear intelligent, right? So they'll have to tell you like that. They'll use big words when they're not needed, right? Especially if they know they're talking over the people the person or the people they're talking to. Doctors are notorious for it, right? Part of it is just their lingo, right? But a good doctor will drop it down so you understand it. I saw it at a couple conferences I was at this time, that even though the class was listed as beginner, I'm in the room going, this isn't beginner level information. I mean, but a lot of people that want to appear intelligent will have to show you something that you don't know, right? So you have strength, you have intelligence, and again, they're intelligent. Fear is if you flatter their intelligence, oh, you're so smart, this is going on. But if you, again, their fear is to be seen as not intelligent. Okay? And we see it in the political world where there's a few people that if they're challenged on their strength or in their intelligence, they lose their shit. Right? And there's no judgment there as I'm judging, but it's like, but that lets you know it's like strength and intelligence, right? And then you have two that I kind of put together, approval and acceptance, right? There are people we want approval, right? They'll do any, and we all want approval, but the biggest example would be as someone that asks for approval when it's not needed. I use the example, you're in my office when I had a clinical office and we're working on something, you start crying, right? And I'm sitting in the chair on the side of you, and there's a box of Kleenex here on between us. There's a box of Kleenex on the other side of this person, and they're crying, and they look at you and go, "Is it okay if I use a Kleenex?" Why would they? Of course, I always go, "Oh." Pattern interrupt, right? Where I go, "It's $1." No, just kidding. Of course you could, but it lets me know these people wanted approval, right? Of course, they're, and acceptance kind of goes with that. They just want to be part of a group. They have to be part of a group, right? If they can't be part of a group, they will destroy the group, right? And again, there's no judge, but if somebody's, that seeks approval, give them the approval, give them the acceptance. A lot of people show up in therapy, they need that acceptance, right? Then the last two are kind of cool. One is pity, right? It's people that are driven by pity. Oh, woe was me. And it's not that they maybe didn't get dealt a bad hand, but it's like, and the worst thing you can do to somebody, and I know this from everybody here, if you've ever gotten on the pity pot, as we all have, right? So you're feeling sorry for yourself. The last thing you want to hear is think of the things you'd be grateful for. I was mad the other day and on the pity pot over something, and somebody said, just think the things you're grateful for. I almost wanted to say, well, I'm grateful right now I don't have my weapon on me because I would shoot you. Right? So anyway, but it's pity. And the best way to get in touch with a pity person is to just admit, yeah, that's really rough. It sounds silly, but it's, and then once you get in rapport, you could take them where they want to go. The last one kind of goes with strength a little bit in my thing, or intelligence, which is people that have to be important. Oh, this group could never run without me. I was doing consulting work at a place, and a girl, she'd been there a few months, and we were talking about something. She goes, yeah, I was going to quit, but I just can't quit because this place wouldn't run without me. And I'm like, it's been here for 6 years. But I mean, if it's not you, think of it, you probably have friends that say stuff like that. And you're like, no, I'm pretty sure the office, the business, whatever it is, would run without you, right? But you want to appear important. So you have to tell people how important you are. This group couldn't run without me. This group couldn't do this. Kind of goes back into, they'll play it into their strengths or their intelligence, right? So again, what can flatter them, get them moving toward it, but you also know what their fear is. Right? And this, when you add the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and the HOT model, right? When you're flattering them, you're putting into the experience like, yeah, I got this, I'm part of it. Well, this side, I never can get the reverse camera thing going. The NLP, right? Whatever it is, right? And then people want to be part of a group, right? Whatever it is, you could feed into it, right? In good groups, good organizations, if you have an organization you're trying to grow an organization, they do this, right? It's the camaraderie, it's the group thing, in that, right? And feeling accepted. So whatever it is, so when you put all this together, where you put them in the experience, right, then you have them pull out of the experience and think about, well, if they don't do it, they're going to be weak or stupid or not important, right? So when they go back in the experience, it's like you can influence them better. So that's a little bit about, Street Smart NLP, and that's coming up. And we're recording it September 13th and 14th for like 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday and Sunday, a couple hours on Wednesday, the 17th, and then the 20th and 21st, 6 hours, to practice the skill set. And then all the basic NLP techniques. Once you add all this together, then you can see how to leverage doing a new behavior generator with a client a little bit differently. So that's the goal, right? And of course, it'll be recorded. So if people, if you're watching this on replay, just reach out. And, you know, I'm kind of excited about doing it. I've been thinking about it. In fact, I was really pushing, getting ready to do it. And then a little thing called COVID happened and everything fell apart, right? Then I was going to do it another time. I have a bunch of people come to Florida and do it. And then I tore my Achilles tendon. So, oh, wait, let me get on the pity pot. So that's the Street Smart NLP. That's what I'm working on. That's what I'm trying to do. So, you know, I love this stuff, and it's been changed over the years. I see people that have, you know, taken the NLP training a while ago, like if he's still on, Michael Brave, of course, Dr. John, Bruce, you know, they've seen that I'm trying to keep morphing this so it doesn't get stuck into the old way. So again, if you have any questions about NLP or anything like that, go to hortonpsychology.com and just shoot me a contact info and I can get back to you, or just look me up. So I hope everybody does well.